war, when Trump said, hey, you know what, we're negotiating with the Iranian regime, right? We saw that the first thing that happened, as soon as that happened, we got a massive 4% Bitcoin candle. Now, the Bitcoin stopped moving after that 4%. Now, the reason why it stopped moving after that 4% back then was because the Iranians said, hey, I don't know who you think you're negotiating with. You're definitely not negotiating with us, right? And that's why in the last run, we actually, the pump actually stopped. But now we're back. And the narrative around this war has shifted from a war and destruction narrative to much more of a peace narrative, right? So you may remember that about a week ago, in fact, exactly 6 days ago, I tweeted and I said, this war actually has less than 2 weeks left. And I'm sticking to my call here, although I am extending by one more week, right? I am extending it by 1 week. And I'm kind of saying, look, I think by the second week of April, we've got some kind of ceasefire, right? And what we do know is that when we do get a ceasefire, that's going to be good for Bitcoin. How do I know that? Well, because the last time that we told the market that there may be a ceasefire, that actually shot Bitcoin 4% up. And that run landed up ending because that run landed up ending because the Iranians denied the fact that there is a ceasefire. Now, though, what you can see is that the charts are showing you that the ceasefire actually may be on. Now, remember I said to you guys, there's two wars. The first war happens on the headlines. The second war happens where the money is, right? So anyone can talk around headlines, but we're talking about where the money is. And where the money is happening is on the charts. Now, if you look at the charts, the oil chart specifically, and this is the Oman oil chart, basically has gone back to half the price that it was in the all-time highs, right? Now, what is that telling you? That's telling you that things on the ground are actually calming down. The headlines are saying the same thing. The Israeli channel basically reported that there is a 15-point plan that the US is using during a 1-month ceasefire. So now they're talking about a 1-month ceasefire. And in that 1-month ceasefire, the US has a 15-point plan that they want to negotiate around. Now, remember, this is all about negotiations. And in a negotiation, you never expect to get everything that you bargain for, right? So the US has put down these 15 points, and I'm going to read them again. I know I read some of them last time. Full dismantling of the accumulated nuclear capabilities. Binding commitment never to pursue nuclear capabilities. Zero enrichment of uranium permitted on US soil. All enriched material to be transferred to the Energy Association. The big plants to be decommissioned. Full transparency across all nuclear stuff. End the warfare doctrine. Immediate halt to funding of the regional proxies. And I think they're talking about Hezbollah. I think they're talking about the Houthis. Missile program to face future limits, etc. Now, obviously, Iran came out and said, look, the demands that the US has made are really absurd. At the same time, Iran has actually got its own demands. And its demands are the closure of all US bases in the Gulf, guarantees of no further attacks, obviously can't guarantee that, end of Israeli strikes to Hezbollah, lifting of sanctions on Iran, and war damage reparations, and no restriction on missile program. So that's the starting point for the negotiations. And it's a good starting point because, number one, they're agreeing to a 30-day ceasefire. In that 30-day ceasefire, it's not a total ceasefire, it's a ceasefire on big bombs and stuff like that, on big targets and stuff like that. What they're saying is, we're going to go and negotiate these points. Both sides know that they're not getting the full negotiation, but at least right now they're at the negotiating table, right? Remember, in the past, they kept saying, look, we don't know who you're speaking to. You're negotiating with yourselves, right? And as I said earlier, I saw this little clip here, and it says, a fair question. And it's like a psychologist with Trump, and he says, the Iranians that you've been talking to for the past 2 days, are they in the room with us? Obviously implying that, Trump's being delusional. And at least now we know for sure that they are actually negotiating, right? Now, remember, we know the end of the war will be good and it will get markets to run again. And we've seen exactly that the last time we got a hint to the end of the war. We know that there are real peace talks in process, right? So from going into this situation where it was a one-sided thing, now they're talking about, the Iranian officials have told mediators that they've been tricked twice by Trump. They don't trust Trump anymore. They say the last time they were negotiating with Trump, during the negotiation, Trump stopped the negotiation and basically dropped bombs on them. As a result, what they've asked for is they said, look, up until now, Trump has been asking them to negotiate with the two master negotiators, specifically around Middle Eastern conflicts. And the two master negotiators around Middle Eastern conflicts are Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, right? So Steve Witkoff, I think he's related to Trump, but if not, he's not related to Trump. He's like Trump's master negotiator. Jared Kushner is Trump's son-in-law, right? He's married to Trump's daughter. He's married to Ivanka Trump. And he's the master negotiator in the Middle East. Now, what they're saying, Iran says, look, we don't want to negotiate with these people. We want to negotiate with J.D. Vance. We don't trust them, right? They're saying that the last time we negotiated with these two people, you bombed us in the middle of the thing. And he says that kind of betrayal doesn't actually get forgotten. Vance is different in their eyes. He's a vice president. He's less enthusiastic about the war, and he's the only person the enemy specifically wants at the table. And right now, we know that Vance has had talks with Netanyahu, and he is now on the way to go and have a peace negotiation. Now, who is mediating the negotiations? So the Pakistanis are taking the lead. The Egyptians and the Turks are all facilitating these negotiations. They also don't trust Trump because some people are saying that Trump is trying to buy time to get ground troops in place. Now, there are allegedly or apparently ground troops on the way to the region. I highly doubt that this becomes a ground war. And the reason why it doesn't become a ground war is pretty simple, right? If you look at Iran, look at the sheer geographical size of Iran on the map. Now, the problem is, how do you put ground troops into an area which is this big? How do you put ground troops into an area that's this big? You need millions of troops to cover an area that's this big, right? You need millions of troops. And it just doesn't make sense that the US will send 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. Where exactly are they going to put these troops? Unless specifically what they want to do is they want to secure a specific refinery or a specific plant or a specific area. I don't believe that they're going to get into a full-on ground invasion. And so I think right now, I also saw this, and I think it's very, very pertinent. He says, we have one message for the American troops. If America is thinking of bringing ground troops, right? He says, for years, we've been waiting for the Americans entry into designated points, and for over 2 decades, we've been training with asymmetric warfare for this very moment. Now we have just one message for the Americans: come closer, right? Now, that's pretty true. Like, you don't want to be getting into a ground invasion in an area like this, where the enemy knows the terrain way better than you know the terrain. I almost want to say that it's impossible. Like, really, I almost want to say that a ground invasion is impossible. Also, in the midterm year, where Trump's ratings are slipping, does Trump really want to get into a ground war when he knows how bad the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war, etc. was? So he's not going to do that, right? And so the narrative is moving back from war to the end of the war. And that is why I think markets are going to carry on running. And I'm going to show you exactly how far they're going to go. And I'm also going to show you where they're going to reject and why they're going to reject. And there's 2 levels where they're going to reject and why they're going to reject. So why do I think that this is happening now? Why am I confident right now to say that this is the beginning of the end of the war? And by the way, when I say the beginning of the end of the war, I think that there's going to be multiple times in this war where the negotiations stop, where one party walks away from the table, where there's going to be more attacks. And when those things happen, the oil price is going to spike again, and Bitcoin is going to dip again, and gold is going to dip again, etc., etc. But I do believe that we are in the beginning of the end of the war. And the reason why I say that we are in the beginning of the end of the war is a very simple reason. The marginal return of the strikes in the beginning of the war was very high. They had a lot of big targets. Every target scored them big wins, right? If you bomb a nuclear facility, that scores you big wins. But then you've destroyed the nuclear facility. If you bomb a power plant, that scores you a big win. But then you've bombed it. And then what happens is, what they start doing is, they start going for smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller wins. So first you attack the big targets. First you attack the big threats. And then what you do during a war is that you surgically go and remove a whole lot of small targets. And as you get longer and longer and longer in this kind of war, because they're not facing very much resistance. So it's not like they're fighting a war and they're being shot at, etc. They're literally flying over, bombing, destroying, flying over, bombing, destroying, flying over, bombing, destroying. And what you realize is that when you've got such superior air command, or when you've got such superior command over your enemy's airspace, and you're basically removing what you want, in the beginning you remove all the big targets, and then you basically move to a whole lot of like much smaller targets. So, you go from bombing big nuclear plants to small labs where they maybe toying with enriching uranium, or where there's some famous a doctor or whatever working on these things, right? So I think we're at a point now where the majority of 85% of the damage has actually been done. And now the problem is that the marginal utility, or the marginal return of actually staying in the war, actually doesn't yield you that much return. And on the other side, every day that you're in this war, there's a cost. Now, what are the costs? The first part of the cost is the actual cost of the war, right? And I think I read a tweet somewhere that said, here we go. So this is the tweet. It says, Trump has spent 30 billion on the Iran war, enough to extend ACA healthcare credits for a year, okay, for the entire year, blah, blah. That doesn't really matter. But he spends 30 billion on this war. So there is a physical cost to the war. But the physical cost of the war isn't the problem. The cost goes much, much, much higher than the physical cost. Number one is the physical cost of the war. Number two is when you look at the Treasury yield. You look at the US 10-year Treasury yield. That's the US 10-year Treasury yield. If you look at where we were on the 28th of Feb, we were there. And now we are over here. What that means is that the cost of refinancing US debt has gone up by 11%. 11%. Now, you take $39 trillion and you say, okay, well, there's a certain amount of it that needs to be refinanced. Let's say, I don't know, a third of it needs to be refinanced. Call it $8, $9, $10 trillion. And you need to refinance that. And your refinance costs are now 11% higher. Okay? That is an absolute disaster. And so that is a massive, massive, massive cost to the war. Let's have a look. Let's just have a look here. Oh God. Okay. My researchers are ripping me off here, guys. I'll get you afterwards. Don't worry. I'll get you afterwards. So this is the cost of the war. One is the physical cost. The two is the fact that the US 10-year Treasury yield has actually gone up. Three is the cost of oil, right? So you talk about around the cost of oil. The cost of oil has gone up a lot. And that's going to filter into inflation, right? That's going to filter into the gas pumps. And that's going to make people unhappy, right? Inflation is going to make it harder for Trump to get rates reduced, even with his new fair share. The price at the gas pumps is much higher. Now remember, the price at the gas pumps is something that really, really, really affects every single American, because most Americans are driving in the car and they go and they fill up gas. And when they actually land up filling up gas, it upsets them when the gas prices are higher. Now, the last thing that you want to do is upset the American public in the midterm years, right? And as you can see, Trump's approval hits 36%, a new low of 36% as fuel prices surge amid Iran war. That's one of the headlines, okay? So there is a massive cost to this war. And in the beginning, when they were doing a lot of damage and they were destroying missile capabilities, nuclear capabilities, etc., then you say to yourself, okay, you know what, it's actually maybe worth it to be here. But now you've destroyed the top 85% of the top 85% of the targets. Now what? You've got 15% left of targets, but you've got mounting costs on the other side. And so your narrative says, well, you know what? Now it's time to shift from being aggressive to looking for a way out. And so what I think is going to happen is, I don't know if it's going to happen, probably not in the next week or maybe 2 weeks, but I think very, very, very soon, they're going to take the first off-ramp that they get. There's nothing left to fight for. They've destroyed the regime. They've taken the Ayatollahs out. They've probably destroyed their nuclear capabilities. They've severely weakened Iran's military, etc. What else do they want for this war to actually end? And so now I think what's going to happen is Trump is going to take everything or any outlet that he can possibly get to get out of this war. Because we're getting into the midterms. The midterms, I think, are in November. And in the midterms, what you don't want to do is to lose the midterm elections or to lose the House or to lose the Senate because of this war. And so now the US quickly has to move into the other mode, right? And that mode would be, why do we have the pricing on the corner of the screen, or do we have it today? I don't have it on my screen because I don't know what the prices are, and it drives me a little bit mad. So anyway, so where are we? We have a bounce. So that's the bounce. I think we're in the midst of a bounce. Now the question is, where does this bounce go and why? Okay, so where does the bounce go? So I suspect that this bounce follows the charts. And basically, we get this bounce, somehow it does this, and somehow it does that, and eventually lands up somewhere around this level over here, which is about 75,600. When we get to 75,600, then that becomes the big moment of truth. Here, either we break down again, and we go back to this bull flag formation over here, or we finally break through this and we actually reverse the trend. Now, let's look at the downside first. The downside is we break down from here, the war escalates again, or something else happens, and then we go all the way down, we break down below the bear flag, and we can go all the way back down to 40,000. That could be that. The second thing is that we could break up. Now, if we break up, where do we go from there? Well, the next logical test here would be the bull market support band. Now, if you look at where the bull market support band is, I think I mapped it out for us earlier. The bull market support band is over here, $81,000. So what are the two levels that I'm looking at on the charts? I'm looking to get to 75,000. When we get to 75,000, I'm holding on tight and I'm praying that it's not going to be a rejection, although I think it could be a rejection. If we break the 75,000 and we close above the 75,000 and we stay there for 2 or 3 days, then my next stop is the bull market support band, which is $81,000. That would be where it goes. Now, what's going to power us to get from where we are now to the $75,000? Well, let's talk about the forces in the market. The first one is the peace narrative, right? You got the peace narrative. You saw what happened the last time. The minute that they announced peace, gold spiked, silver spiked, and Bitcoin spiked, right? You look at the gold price. Let's quickly just go. You can see I've been looking at Dubai property stocks. We can talk about that at the end of the show if you guys want. Gold up again, silver up again, back at $72, and Bitcoin up again, right? They are preparing for peace. Interestingly, I mean, when people talk about gold as the safe haven asset, gold performed really, really, really poorly during this war. Now, the reason why that happens is because I said it to you guys the other day. If you're worried about tomorrow, then what you do is you buy gold. But if you're worried about right now, then what you do is you sell gold because you need money to pay for the broken refineries, or you need money to transport across the border, and you can't transport big gold bricks, right? And that's why gold isn't a great store of value during times of war. It's a good store of value when you're planning for the future, right? So now, again, I think that we now go up and test the 75,000. We may or may not reject. Best case, we don't reject. If we don't reject, then we're all the way into the bull market support band. Where does the buying pressure come from? So what you would have noticed in the last couple of days is that the MicroStrategy stretch STRC share price, which is this one over here, is back at $1. Now, when this is back at $1, Saylor can go, no, it's just under $1 now, 99.9. But as soon as it goes back over $1, that's when Saylor can go out and raise money, right? And that's when he does the big purchases. So I don't know if you've noticed, but Saylor does some weeks he does big purchases, some weeks he does small purchases. Why? Because if you look at when he makes the purchases, do I actually have that chart of when he actually makes the purchase? Hold on, I'll get you that chart. Researchers, can you send me that chart where we actually plotted the... See if the researchers actually watch the show. I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. Researchers, can you send me that chart? I want to show the guys the chart here. So I'll show you the chart, but Saylor makes his biggest purchases. Let's see if I've got it here. I haven't got it here. Okay, so Saylor makes his biggest purchases when STRC is above 1. Now, STRC, again, is just under 1, which means that as soon as it gets above 1, that's when Saylor will make one of their big purchases, right? He's also going out and raising a lot of cash. So I think Saylor will be back in the market this week with another billion, 1.5 billion, 2 billion purchase. And that'll take us again above. Here it is. Someone says here it is. Let's just see Shubham. Okay, hold on a second. Here we go. Here's the chart that's marked. Okay, you can see it. So every time STRC goes above $1, right? What you can see is that Saylor does one of his big purchases, 1.2 billion, 2.2 billion, 1.2 billion, 1.6 billion, 800 million. Okay, that's what happens every single time. So that is what I think helps us get to the 75,000. We will then talk about the 75,000. This is a super interesting chart. This chart shows the Bitcoin divided by the VIX. VIX is the volatility index. It shows how scared people are. And it shows you that on this trend line over here, it's actually quite an interesting chart. You can see that now we've just touched this trend line, and usually that means that Bitcoin is going to bounce and the VIX is going to drop and we're going to go back up. So kind of like, for me, the stars are kind of aligning here. I do think, though, that we had another setback yesterday, right, when it comes to the Clarity Act. So on the one hand, yes, we're getting the clarity, and the Clarity Act seems to be, as 𝗙𝗪𝗏 says, all you need. The problem is that it seems like that crypto's lost the fight against passive yield. Now, let me talk to you about what this actually means. So what the crypto industry was fighting for was, if you're just holding USDC. In other words, just imagine you've got USDC in your wallet. Every day you would get a return on that USDC. That's called passive rewards. It means just by holding USDC, you would get a yield. The banks are saying, no, you can't do that. You have to take an action to get that yield, right? So you have to lock it up in a vault. You have to put on a centralized exchange. You have to lend it out. You have to do yield. Now, the old banking system requires you to do that. Stablecoins, because they're digital money and it's programmable, doesn't require for you to actually do the action. And it could literally revolutionize the banking system. Because imagine you're sitting with USDC in your wallet, and then every day you're getting more USDC in your wallet. It's a financial revolution. And that is what you can do with digital money. But it looks like we lost that fight for yield. And as a result, you can kind of see that in the Circle share price. The Circle share price collapsed quite a bit yesterday. And Coinbase as well collapsed quite a bit, because now they can't incentivize people as much to hold USDC. Now, if you want to earn interest on your USDC, you're going to have to go and stake it, or you're going to have to go and lock it up, or you're going to have to do some kind of action or something like that. Whereas before, what Brian Armstrong and Jeremy Allaire were fighting for was saying, look, if you just hold USDC, then you're going to get a return on the fact that you're actually holding this asset, which is a massive thing. Look, be that as it may, I want to just spend like 2 minutes. I saw a tweet today, and it really sparked something for me. So this was the tweet, and the tweet was Blockworks Group at their first conference in 2018. I was actually there in 2018, and this was, I think, in somewhere in New York or in Brooklyn, if I remember correctly. And then in 2026, like, you've got Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, talking at this crypto conference, and it just gave me a perspective on how far we've actually come here, right? We've come really, really, really far as an industry. And I made a video yesterday. I don't know how many of you actually watched it. And if you haven't watched it, there's a link below, but you should go and watch it. It's called I'm Leaving Crypto. And the whole play here was around the fact that everyone's telling me to leave crypto to go to AI. But what they don't understand is that crypto is the rails where AI is going to do all its contracting and all its settlement. And I highly recommend that you go and watch that video, because it's one of the best videos that I think I've ever made. If you have watched it, just tell us in the chat if you've actually if you have already watched it. And so, we've got the Clarity Act coming. It may not be the ideal Clarity Act, but at least there's clarity. And then with clarity, as it says, clarity is all you need. And then, a lot of people say that one of the reasons why Circle actually dropped so much yesterday is because Tether is going to get audited by one of the big four accounting firms. I don't know really if I believe that that's why Circle dropped. I think Circle dropped because of the Clarity Act. Why? Because I don't think you can invest in Tether. You can invest in Circle. There's no way for you right now to invest in Tether. And they were talking about a $1 trillion valuation, actually, or $500 billion valuation on Tether, which kind of makes sense, actually. Kind of makes sense. All right, let's just spend a couple of minutes looking at the altcoins. While we're here, and it's a green, beautiful day. So 𝗏's exploding. This was one of my calls in front runners. I've told you guys a couple of days ago that I bought 𝗏. There's a lot of noise around 𝗏 happening at the moment. The subnets are starting to perform. There's also the halving, which is happening around 𝗏, which is amazing. So 𝗏 exploding. One of the tokens that you probably should be looking at is ZK Sync, right? So number one, they are partnering up with actual banks in the US to launch some of their roll-ups, right? So this is one of those projects that is working really hard to get institutional adoption, and they're getting it byte by byte by byte, and they're actually building. Banks are building, byte by byte by byte. So I think that's also doing pretty well. Let's look at some other altcoins while we're here, just for some fun. The AI coins are running, and again, I think the AI coins are running because of the narrative of the video that I made yesterday, which is like, look, the way you got to think about crypto is you pretty much got to look at it like this, right? Yeah, there's another AI coin, which is VVV. That's Eric's project, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪's project, Venice. The way that I look at protocols now, when I look at a crypto investment now, I just ask myself a very simple question. I say, when the machines are using the rails, are they going to use this protocol? Yes or no? And if it is, then it's probably good to look at it as an investment. And if it isn't, well, then probably don't look at it as an investment, right? Are the machines going to look at it, use the rails? Yes, probably invest. No, don't invest. What else? What else is going on? Let me quickly have a look at the newsroom. Anything happening in the newsroom? Not much going on. Very quiet. Very, very, very quiet. All right, my friends. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.